After leaving Taquamenon Falls, it was time to head to Pictured Rocks National Park. There are several waterfalls, and I had a scheduled cruise at 5 p.m. The first waterfall stop was Sable Falls. So there's a bathroom right there.
We're going to go right here for everybody, okay?
168 stair steps down to Sable Falls and back up.
After you do that, it feels like a needle.
Yeah. If you get tired, there's a bench. Might need that on the way back up. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. There's more. It's a tumbling cascade. It's beautiful. Oh gosh, I don't know about this. Go a little slow. My walking stick broke, so I have no walking stick to use. got off to a late start this morning, about a half an hour off of the schedule that I created. So I'm kind of walking a little fast. I can see the water already over there. Excuse me. All right, here's the beach. Wow! There's like a bunch of rocks out here. Big sand dune. I already got sand in my shoe. Back at the fall. It's not very long from the fall to the beach. Now I have to climb up all the stairs and run out of breath. You just take that right there and it goes right to the beach. Up. Okay, I'm out of breath, but I did it. Look, there's like a rock over there. Oh, I bet that's that sand dune from the beach. Way up back in the background. That is tall. After visiting Sable Falls, took a 4-minute drive back through Grand Marais to visit the Grand Marais Tavern for lunch. And then it was on to Miners Falls. The map took us down a rock road called Adams Trail, which lasted probably over a half an hour or so. There's the parking for Miners Falls. Toilet. feels like sand. It's kind of sandy. Well, can hear the fall.
Yeah, but you were in the fountain.
Walk down.
Can't really see it from here. So we'll have to go down the steps. There's people down there at the bottom. Okay, back up. 66 stairs. From Miners Falls, we headed into the town of Munising. There's also a waterfall called Munising Falls, but back in April, a storm wiped out the viewing platform, so was not able to go to that one. So our final stop was at the cruise. There are a couple of waterfalls on the cruise that are only accessible on the cruise.
Yep. Hi there, folks. How you doing? Doing well. Welcome aboard. Where are we at right now? Okay. You say you're going. We're going to sit down here.
Just love how the water sparkles with the sun.
The Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. Your cruise out to the Pictured Rocks today should take about 2 hours to complete. On the way out, we're going to see a couple sand beaches, a few waterfalls, and of course those pristine sandstone cliffs that drop off into the water. Some places those cliffs reach as high as 200 feet. We'll also be taking a close pass by an old lighthouse that's been refurbished on the return trip back. Now the name of the boat you're now riding on is called the Sable Falls. She's the newest in her fleet, built in Wetumpka, Alabama, just a couple years ago. She's 63 feet long, can carry 150 passengers, and is powered by 2 Caterpillar diesel engines. There's C18s, 800 horsepower apiece, and those big bad boys will be pushing us along at the next snapping speed of a whopping 25 miles an hour. Hold on tight. Like green sections of sandbar or sand shoal comes out from that beach area known as Sand Point. You can actually walk all along the edge of this sandbar. You'll be in 4, maybe 5 feet of water. Maybe take a step off that sandbar towards the boat, you'll fall into 65 feet of water. It's practically a vertical drop-off. Well, as we pass the sandbar and the green navigational buoy, we'll be leaving the safely sheltered harbor of Munising Bay and entering into Lake Superior proper. And I'm sure for some of you this is your first ride out onto Lake Superior, so I'll tell you a little bit more about it. If we were to travel straight north to Canada from here, you find you pick the widest point to cross. It's 165 miles straight north to Canada. Lake Superior is also a pretty long lake stretching from Duluth, Minnesota to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, right around 350 miles. And if we were patient enough, or crazy enough, to take this boat all along the perimeter of the lake, you find your travel distance of right around 1,780 miles. But this here is the first major point of interest, known as Miner's Castle, also sometimes referred to as Castle Rock. You can see where the Park Service have erected a few observation platforms both on the cliff and on the castle. They also built a pretty nice park up there, complete with barbecue pits, picnic tables, and a facilities building. Wouldn't be too surprised if Dollar General got a hold of some property up there. Those things seem to pop up everywhere. How to get out here, you just take H58 east out of Munising, follow the road signs for Miners Castle. It'll take you to a parking lot right on top of the cliff. And a couple years ago, we were actually lucky enough to witness a wedding being performed on the castle. Many of the passengers oohed and awed. They thought it was a beautiful place for a wedding, which I agree. Well, this beach area is known as Miners Beach. You take the same road that goes out to the castle to get to the beach, but where the beach ends, so does the road. If you want to see any more of the pictured rocks by land, you're going to have to hike. And hike you can. There's a lakeshore trail that goes from Munising all the way to the small village of Graham right at the end of the park. Well, in a couple of moments here, we're going to be seeing a trickle of a waterfall. It's known as Bridal Veil Falls. Bridal Veil Falls is one of our seasonal waterfalls, meaning it only runs in the early springtime or after a heavy rain. They used to run all year long, but some beavers built a dam up on the river that feeds the falls, so it tends to dry up in the summertime.
How red the rock is.
And these next few large coves are known as the Painted Coves. The sandstone itself has very little color to it. Kind of has the grayish color you see near the top, or the yellow tan you see on either side. The colors you do see that seem to streak down the face are caused by groundwater mineral seepage. And what that means is that there's a water table that sits above this lake. It dissolves minerals and runs down the face, and as it does, it'll dry and leave stains behind. Makes it look like someone painted the face of the cliff. Well, the reds, browns, oranges, and purples you see through here are caused by iron seepage. Blues and greens we'll see later on down in a couple spots are from copper seepage. Black is from a manganese seepage. And the white, of course, is from a seagull seepage. Also has something to do with calcium and lime. So you're going to notice quite a few cave-ins through the next few sections of the cliff. You can normally tell the age of cave-ins by what remains in the water. Where you just see large rocks and boulders with very little sand on top, it's relatively old. But where a lot of sand is piled up, it's relatively new. Normally takes about a decade or so before all that sand washes away. Just type in picture rocks cave-in, you'll see it there. It's quite the fun watch. Well, we have these caves here known as the Caves of All Colors. They're a good example of that wave action that carves out the soft layer of rock you see through the center of them. In the wintertime, when large waves come crashing into these caves, they'll pressurize and shoot out like a cannon. Wind will catch the spray from those waves, throw it back on top of the cliff and freeze. Leaves 4 to 5 feet of ice up there. But if you look down the shoreline, you'll see an archway. That's our Lover's Leap. The cutout of Lover's Leap kind of looks like a heart laying on its side in the water. Just kind of tilt your head to the left, you can see it there. Well, despite its name, I wouldn't recommend to jump off of Lover's Leap. I don't care how much you say you're in love. Water depth directly beneath that archway is only 3 feet. Makes for a pretty short love story.
I want to do that. I've seen it in videos. But I haven't been doing this. Next time. Oh my god. I wonder if they're everywhere.
Well, we have this large cave here known as Rainbow Cave. And if you look closely in the mouth of Rainbow Cave, you might be able to see some tiny splashes on the surface water, almost as if it's raining inside a Rainbow Cave. Well, groundwater falls from the ceiling of the cave and into the lake like rain all year long, and it creates huge, colorful icicles in the wintertime. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, you can see some of that blue-green copper staining I was telling you about. Ever seen the Painted Desert? I do understand what they're trying to get at, though. In fact, that's how Pictured Rocks received its name. It's from people seeing different images or faces on the sides of these cliffs. I've heard people say they see all sorts of things. Planes, trains, farm scenes, famous paintings, famous faces, cartoon characters, all sorts of things. I even had a gentleman a couple months back tell me that one of the points up ahead kind of reminded him of the profile of Dwayne Johnson. I looked over there as best as I could and looked back at the fella and I said, well, all I could see is the rock. Here I'm going to swing out into the lake, and as I do, if you look off the bow of the battleship, you'll see what we call Battleship Row. Looks like the sterns or back ends of several of the old-time sailing vessels lined up in a row towards the beach. Much like the Flying Dutchman or the Black Pearl when it's lined up at port. Well, right now you can see that sandy beach, and here they come now. This here is our Battleship Row. Well, this rock formation here is known as the broken flower vase. You can picture the trees as the flowers, rock as the vase. Kind of has a narrow oyster stem with a flared bottom to it and a chip off the upper right hand corner. Well, the other day I was passing through here and I noticed there were a couple of kayakers in this cave here. This is a pretty large one. I was looking over there and I kind of thought to myself, you know what, I could probably fit one of these boats in there. So we're going to try it out real quick.
Oh my gosh, we're getting so close.
Wow.
See, I knew we'd fit. You folks ever do anything like this before? Yeah, neither have we. Right now we're at about 15 feet of water. This boat drafts about 4.5. And this is known as Chapel Cove. And once we get back here a little ways, if you look off the left-hand side about halfway up the cliff, wrapping all the way around the point, you'll see some of that blue-green copper standing up there.
Could just be a steady stream.
Well, this beach is Chapel Beach, and at the end of the beach you can see Lower Chapel Falls. You can follow that up to Chapel Lake, which is completely cliff-bound and cliffs similar to the pictured rocks. Well, this last rock formation here is known as Chapel Rock. Chapel Rock's quite the interesting formation, standing at 65 feet in height. What's more interesting than the rock itself is a lone pine tree sitting on top. There's not enough soil up there for that tree to survive. The only way it gets its water and nutrients are from its roots that are hanging to the mainland. You can see those roots quite clearly hanging on the left-hand side. Used to be a stone archway supporting those roots, but that came crashing down some 65 years ago. And the tree lives on. Well, back in 2018, the U.S. Mint decided to run a series of National Lakeshore Quarters. And on the backhand side of Pictured Rock's National Lakeshore Quarter, you can find Chapel Rock. Well, this here is Sable Falls. Sable Falls is the only waterfall along the Pictured Rocks cliffs that runs year-round. In the wintertime, it'll actually form an ice column all the way around it. and the waterfall will continue to flow through the center. Well, despite its natural beauty, Spray Falls is also the location of one of the worst maritime disasters that ever occurred on Lake Superior, when a passenger vessel known as the Superior came crashing on the cliffs through here in an October snowstorm. They say you can still find parts of the boat in the area, but most of it's broken up and washed away. The water underneath that fall is actually quite shallow. A lot of people often come out here around the 4th of July with their pontoon boats and kind of stand underneath the waterfall. You can see that large cave in there. It goes back about 15 feet. Well, the cliffs do extend for about another 1.5 miles in the distance, where it turns into 12-mile beach. And from 12-mile beach, you have the furthest point out there, known as Sable Point. And around there is the small village of Grand Marais, which marks the end of the park. If you ever find yourself in Grand Marais, be sure to not miss the sand dunes that are over there. They extend some 300 feet above this lake. That's 100 feet higher than any of the points of interest you saw here today. Oh, this here's the old East Channel Lighthouse, built back in the mid-1800s, just shortly after the Civil War. It's actually when a lot of the lighthouses in this area were built. The last man to run the old lighthouse was a man by the name of George Pryor. He lived out here in considerable isolation with his small family. And when I say small family, I mean it was him and his wife and their 12 children. George Pryor last turned out the kerosene lamp back in 1906. That's when it was replaced by range lights in Munising. As I spin the boat back around, if you look back towards town, you'll see a white tower with a red light. It's the front light of the range lights, though now it's a directional light, meaning if the light's red or green, it means that we're off course when going through the channel. But if it's white, it means that we're free to pass through the center of the channel without hitting either of the sandbars.
I really like this cruise. They narrated on the way there, so if you want to view the rocks and everything with the narration, sit on the right side of the boat. Everybody on the left side of the boat got to see everything on the way back, but there was no narration.